Okay guys, as you came in, I handed out some statistics that we're going to talk about today before we start our lesson. So I want, if you got one and you feel comfortable reading it, I want you to read it to everybody. If not, I can walk over and I can read it for you. And I want us to read those and kind of see how they make us feel. So the first one, okay. Right, African Americans make up for 40% of incarcerated people. What does incarcerated mean? Okay, right, that means they're in the prison system, that means they've been arrested, they've been in jail, they've been convicted for some type of crime. Okay, the second one, okay. 30% of black victims were unarmed in 2015 compared to 21% of white victims. Does that seem like a pretty big difference? Yeah, okay. All right, the third one. Okay. Right, 68% say that whites benefit a great deal. Now, this doesn't specify to what degree that they benefit, but it does say that 61% of people believe that white people benefit more than black people. Okay, the last one. Okay. African American households have only 10% in wealth for every dollar held to white households. 10% of the dollar. So 10 cents of the dollar, that means 90 cents is left. That's the comparison here. So that's a pretty small amount compared to white households. All right, and one more. 64% of Americans say that racism remains a major problem in our society. That's probably the most important one that I want us to focus on today because that's what we're talking about. As we've been talking about in this unit, we've talked about social injustice and discrimination. And like we talked about with our previous book, Wonder, how children were discriminated against because of a medical disability, or because they were different, or because their family was different, or because they lived somewhere different. And this book is very different from that. So I want us to kind of step away from the thoughts that we had about Wonder and how great of a book that was, but also apply the same idea of social injustice to our new book that we're reading, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Now, I know everyone doesn't have a copy right now, and that's okay. You will either have a paper copy when you leave today, or you will have it on your iPad. So we've downloaded a couple of the digital versions onto iPads. If you need that or want that, you have that option, but if you would rather have a paper copy, I have about 20 of those, and I can hand those out when you leave today. Okay, now that we've talked about some major statistics that have to do with social injustice and police brutality, I want us to look at a video. It's about a major criminal case that happened in the 80s. And most of you don't know about this, and that's okay, but recently Netflix has done a documentary film or a reinterpretation of the story. And it's a really cool film to watch if you want to watch it at home with your parents. If we have time, we might try to watch it at the end of the unit, but we probably won't be able to. And it talks about 5 guys who were arrested and convicted of crimes they did not commit. And so the video on Netflix talks about this whole story, and I want you to see, now they've grown up, they're out of prison, and their sentences have been overturned, but I want you to see how this affected them, how later in life this completely changed their perspective and changed how they function on a normal basis.
I've never seen that. Reconnecting in New York at the end of an emotional journey. Together, turning a real story of stolen youth and wrongful conviction into a dramatic Netflix series called When They See Us.
They saw you rape the lady.
I didn't see a lady or anything.
I didn't see any lady, Kevin. I didn't see any lady.
Explain the title.
I really became allergic to the idea of calling it Central Park 5. They were given this name by the press, by political forces, and it really takes away their personal power. When they see us, it humanizes them.
John, these police will mess us up. They're not playing. They're not.
Before a white female jogger was beaten and raped in New York Central Park in 1989, they were just 5 teenagers from Harlem. Yusuf Salam, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Corey Wise, and Raymond Santana. But soon after the horrific crime, they were arrested and quickly branded the Central Park Five.
This whole process was surreal, just to see like our life story portrayed and to still be relevant 30 years later.
Is one more here? It's just us. You and us.
Convicted on what they always maintained were coerced confessions, each was sentenced to years behind bars.
Troy, what was it like for you to watch those scenes of your incarceration? Was it difficult?
It was. Still is, but it was.
Their convictions were vacated in 2002 after another man confessed to the attack. His DNA a match. The Central Park Five were awarded $41 million in a settlement with the city of New York.
We didn't get an apology, all the time we did for something we didn't do, and it hurts. We have this indelible scar of, that's, Kevin Richardson, the guy from the Central Park Chocolate Cakes.
Okay, guys, we might not be able to finish it, and that is okay. Sometimes we have to work with technology.
Richardson, the guy from the Central Park Chocolate Cakes.
Okay, so that gives us a pretty good idea, though, so far, about these 5 men who were convicted of this crime. How do you think it made them feel 20 years later to have their story told? How do you think it felt when some of them were as young as 12 years old and were put in prison for 10 years? Could you imagine at your age being convinced and being harassed to a point that you plead guilty for a crime you didn't commit? That's a pretty serious situation. And as I would hope that none of you would ever be in that situation, I want you to imagine the pain of that family, the stress that those people had to go through, and just how negative that viewpoint was placed on them. So I want us to go over some of the objectives that we're going to meet throughout this unit and throughout this lesson. And our first two, one is dealing with English language arts and writing. The other one is dealing with civic engagement. The first one is the Virginia Standard of Learning 7.5. The student will read and demonstrate comprehension of a variety of fictional texts, literary nonfiction, poetry, and drama. So what is the text that we're reading now? Is it fiction or is it nonfiction? Right, it's fiction. So right now we're focusing on fiction text. We haven't worked on nonfiction very much. We've done one text that was nonfiction, but this whole unit is about fiction text, okay? The next one is the Virginia Standard of Learning Civic Engagement 1. Taking informed action to address school, community, local, state, national, and global issues. What is the issue that we're dealing with right now? Social injustice, right. That is a state, national, and global issue. Defending conclusions orally and in writing to a wide range of audiences using evidence from sources. So, did we do a lot of that with Wonder? No. But we're going to do it with the Hate You Give. So something we're going to talk about later before we leave is a big group project that we're going to do at the end of us finishing this text. And we will take what we have learned from the text and what we have pulled out, and we will apply it to a real life event. And you guys will be able to take a stand and have an opinion on it and be able to present that opinion based from sources of the Hate You Give and other sources that you research in a written presentation or an oral presentation. You will have the option to do either depending on what your group feels comfortable doing. Also, I want to talk about the National Council for Teaching English, those standards that we're looking at. National Council for Teaching English 7, students conduct research on issues and interests by generating ideas and questions and by posing problems. They gather, evaluate, and synthesize data from a variety of sources, print, non-print, artifacts, and people. So can you gather information from having an interview with someone? Yes, that is research. That is gathering information. You can use that as a source to communicate their discoveries in ways that suit their purpose and audience, okay? The next one is the National Council for Teaching English 3. Students apply a wide range of strategies to comprehend, interpret, evaluate, and appreciate text. They draw on their prior experience, their interactions with other readers and writers, their knowledge of word strategies, and their understanding of textual features. sound letter correspondence, sentence structure, content, graphics. So that's the actual meat of the text. That's not analyzing the text and talking about how it makes us feel or our opinion on it. That's looking at the words. That's looking at the way the sentence is structured. That's looking at the tone, all of that type of stuff. That's what we're doing there. Okay? So the next thing I want us to look at is to take out your reading journal. Okay? You already have it from Wonder, but I want you to take it out, and we're going to start our second section for our next text that we're using this reading journal for. Okay? If you have your reading journal on your iPad, you can take it out that way, and you'll have to create the graphic version on your iPad. If you need help remembering how to do that, just ask me, and I can try to pull it up in Word. The first one that we're going to look at is our graphic organizer talking about fiction versus nonfiction, okay? So you should already have the fiction versus nonfiction graphic organizer already filled out in your reading journal, okay? If you don't, that means that you lost it from last time, or that you didn't do it the first time and you got away with it and I didn't catch it. But you need to make sure you have it done for this section, because we're really going to talk about the differences. So let's review the difference between fiction versus nonfiction, okay? What are some major characteristics of a fiction text, okay? You can feel emotions. They have a clear beginning, middle, and end. They are typically fairy tales, okay, like Cinderella, or a series book, like the Hunger Games. Or they could be make-believe. It could be a story that's totally made up in someone's head and they decided to write about it, okay? What are some characteristics of nonfiction text? They are factual, okay? Everything in them is credible and has been researched. They have headings and sections. So not necessarily a beginning, middle, and end, but they have a heading and they have a section based on the topic that they are discussing. These typically tend to be biographies, newspapers, and encyclopedias. Okay, and nonfiction texts are based on real evidence. So make sure that you have this filled in your graphic organizer, because we're going to use it a lot whenever we move away from fiction text and into nonfiction. Okay, so what is the similarities? So we have the differences on both sides in our graphic organizer, or our Venn diagram. Okay, I hope you remember that. What are some similarities in the middle? What are they the same? They have a table of contents. No matter what it is, it should have a table of contents telling you where you can find information. They have a title, okay? Every piece of work has a title. Whether it's a newspaper article, whether it's a story, whether it's an online article, whether it's a blog, whatever, it has a title. And poetry falls in the middle of both, because poetry could be based on fictional, like made up, your feelings, or it could be based on facts, nonfiction. So poetry is kind of different in the means that it can kind of go either way. So the second graphic organizer, Venn diagram I want you to pull up is your Wonder one, okay? This is at the end of our first section of our reading journal. So this whole section was for Wonder. This was for each chapter you read. This was for all the activities that we did. So this should be at the end, leading us into the next section of our reading journal, okay? All of us have Wonder already filled out. Should we have the Hate You Give filled out yet? No, it should not be filled out, because we haven't read the story, so we don't know, okay? So let's review the things that we talked about in Wonder, because I want us to remember what we talked about, and I also want us to remember that what we're talking about now is going to be completely different. And yes, you can apply some of the same strategies, however, it will not be the same, okay? So some main points in Wonder were, he was a young boy, that's right, okay? Was his social injustice based on his race? No. Was it based on his ethnic background? No. Was it based on his socioeconomic status? No. It was based on the fact that he had a medical disability, okay? That is what stood him out from other people, and that's why he was discriminated against, okay? What was one of the main things that he did? He worked on a science project, okay? Good. That's how he made friends. And then what was something that he wore that was pretty remembrance? Like, what did you remember that he wore? Okay, good. He wore a helmet, okay? Why did he wear that helmet? There were a couple of reasons why he wore that helmet. Right, okay. A, because he really liked space and he thought he could be an astronaut. And B, because he made it feel like it hid him. The other people couldn't see his disability. And they couldn't see what was wrong with him, and he could hide from the world behind that helmet. Okay? And something that I want us to add, okay, so get your pencils out. I want you to add in the middle the similarities between the two is going to be identity, the concept of identity. Okay, we talked a lot about identity and wonder, and that's something that we're going to talk about a lot in this new text as well. So I want us to add that into the similarities because it's going to be the same. Okay, make sure you have that written down because when I check your reading journals at the end of the week, if it's not there, there will be some points deducted, guys. Okay, so the next thing I want us to talk about were the 4 things that one of our standards told us that we were going to look at in our text. These aren't vocabulary, these aren't the feelings, none of that stuff. These are the parts of the text that I want us to talk about. There are 4 that we're going to focus on today. Who remembers what those 4 main ones are? Okay, good. Structure, style, meaning, and tone. Very good, okay? I'm going to show you an example of what you're going to make whenever we're done with group discussion, okay? We did one of these with the last one. We're going to do another one today. So you're taking your piece of paper, you're folding it in half, and you're cutting a slit in the middle. You're going to label 1 structure, you're going to label 1 meaning, 1 tone, 1 style. This will probably not work on the iPad for those of you who have them as your reading journals. This will probably work way better in a paper version, okay? So let's review these parts of the text. Structure. Okay, how is the story structured? Is it based on description? Is it based on cause and effect? Is it based on comparing and contrasting? Is it based on order of sequencing of events? Or is it based on a problem and a solution? Okay, that's what you have to determine while you're reading The Hate You Give. Once you determine that, you need to write it under this flap. Okay? The next one is meaning. An example could be kindness, just like with wonder, or identity, just like with wonder. Or if you just listen to the title, The Hate You Give, okay, do you think kindness is going to have anything to do with the meaning? Probably not, okay? So start thinking about those words. What do you think the meaning could be? When you think you have figured out the meaning, which it could be more than one, it needs to be under the flap. The next one is style. So just like with our clothes, style is the clothes that a text puts on. Like you put on some clothes that make you feel like that's your style, and you do too. The text has the same style, okay? The style of wonder was very uplifting, it was very encouraging, it was very inspirational. So the style could be expository, descriptive, narrative, or persuasive, okay? How is the author presenting the text? Are they explaining a process? Are they describing an event or story? Are they writing a story that's made up completely once upon a time? That's kind of how that starts. Or is it persuasive? Are they trying to get you to understand something? Are they trying to get you on their side? That's a persuasive style. Tone, okay? This is the author's attitude towards the topic, okay? Some examples of tone could be negative, neutral, optimistic, inspirational, and transparent. What do you think the tone could be for The Hate You Give? Do you think this is going to be optimistic? Doesn't sound like it. Do you think that the author has taken a neutral stance on this topic? Probably not, okay? Do you think she could probably be negative about it? Maybe, okay? So think about how you feel like the author is presenting the text. How is she speaking? What kind of words is she using to present that tone? Okay? All right. So we need to work on those graphic organizers as we're reading chapter 1 tonight. If anything stands out to you, you need to start putting it in the graphic organizer. The next thing we're going to work on is our vocab activity. My favorite part, okay? So we're going to do a group project first. Just keep going. We're going to do a group project first. You all have, in the middle of your table, your vocab list, okay? It has all of our vocabulary words that we're going to work on for this week in the story. They're also listed on the board with the correct definition. Do I want you to read these and copy them onto your vocab activity right now? No, I don't. I want you as a group to take 5 minutes, and I want you to look at all of the words on here, okay? Repent, justice, petition, morgue, rummage, gape, and philosophical. I want you to just think, and see. Sorry, mine's on the back. think about what you think that word means. You hear the word, write down the first thing you think as a group. Come up with a decision. The recorder will record what you guys decide on the paper, and then we're going to learn the actual definition, and you're going to start working on your vocab cards. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes to work on that, and I'm going to set a timer, and when the timer goes off, the time is up. Okay, guys, we got about 20 more seconds. Okay, that's it. Okay, so let's go over these really quick. I want to hear what you guys think about each word. So the first one is repent. What do you think of when you hear that word? Okay, good. You think of a spiritual aspect. Most people associate that word with a spiritual aspect. That's right. Okay, justice. We have a good familiarity with that word just because of social injustice is what we've been focusing on. Justice could mean a lot of things. That's good. Okay? The next one is petition. What does it mean to petition? Okay, to ask someone for something, to fight for something. Good. The next one is morgue. This one sounds kind of scary, okay? Right, it's not a good thing. People don't associate that with good feelings. Good. Rummage. What does it mean to rummage? Is that an action? Is that a verb? Is that a noun? What is that? Okay, good. It's usually going through something, trying to find something, rummaging around. That's right. Gape. What does it mean to gape? Yeah, we don't use that word very often. That's okay. All right, good. And then philosophical. It's a big word. Okay, smart. Some people think philosophical people are smart. All right, seethe. Not a word we use often either. Okay, that's close. Okay. So, let's pull out our vocab cards. Remember on your vocab cards, you have one side where your vocab word is on the top line, okay? On this side, where the lines are, is where you're going to write the correct definition. We're going to go over each one. And then tonight, what are you going to do on the other side? Right, you're going to write a sentence using the word in a real world perspective, okay? So the first one, you need to be writing these as we do them, guys. Okay, so the first one is repent, okay? Repent means to turn from sin and dedicate oneself to the amendment of one's life, okay? So write that down. The next one is justice, conformity to truth, fact, or reason. Truth is something we've been talking about a lot, okay? The next one, my cards are out of order, is petition, okay? Petition means an earnest request. So have you ever heard someone petitioned to get signatures for something? Right, good. Okay, the next one is morgue, okay? A place where the bodies of dead persons are kept temporarily pending identification or release for burial or autopsy. Okay, that's a long definition, so I'm going to give you some extra time to make sure you have that one down. And if you don't get them right now, you can get them before you leave. Okay? Okay, the next one is rummage. To make a thorough search or investigation. Okay? The next one is gape. To open the mouth wide, an act of opening the mouth wide. So this is more of used as an action, as a verb, than as a noun. Okay? Philosophical. Devoted to the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence. Okay? Things that are philosophical. Knowledge, reality, and existence. All right, and the last one, seethe. To suffer violent internal excitement. To be in a state of rapid, agitated movement. Okay? And as you're reading these in the text, I want you to note them with your highlighter. Okay? Highlight the word when you find it in the text. You won't find all of them in the first chapter tonight. It'll take you some time, but when you do, I want you to highlight it so you remember that you have your vocab card for it. Okay? And make sure that you have your sentence in the back. I'm going to check the sentences tomorrow. Okay? The last thing I want us to talk about before you write your homework and it's time to go home is our summative assessment that we're going to do at the end of this text, okay? I'm going to read the instructions for you, and then I'm going to give you a prep that you can work on tonight when you go home. Using the information from the text, our text is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, you will be inspired to work together in a group of at least 4 students, okay? These 4 can be a group that I pick or that you choose on your own, okay? To compile a class presentation on a person who was treated unfairly, yet overcame this obstacle and became successful. These are the main things you have to have. 1, the specific area of injustice in society is identified and if it is still occurring. 2, you have to provide background information on the chosen person and label the act of unfairness on them. 3, you need to make sure that you're engaging the class through a variety of technological means. That means creating a video presentation, making an oral argumentative debate, creating a PowerPoint, okay? You could even come up with a game that we could play. Those are all options of incorporating technology. So your take-home activity for today. When you get home tonight and as you're thinking about your summative assessment and what we're going to do at the end, ask the people that live in your home. Do they know of any examples of social injustice? Okay? If they don't know what that word means, explain it to them. You guys know what that word means. We've been talking about it. Okay? If they do, discuss, okay, a social injustice with them. Discuss what they have to say about that. And then come back with ideas from what they've said. So talk to your parents, talk to your sisters, talk to your grandmothers, talk to your grandfathers, talk to your cousins. Whoever's at home with you, talk to them about this idea. And ask them what their examples are. And then try to think in your head, like, okay, what are some ways that we can work for this? What are some ways we can change this? How can we as students fight against the injustices that are happening in our classroom, in our school, and in our country? Okay, so those are some things that you need to be working on tonight. Your vocab card sentences, start reading chapter 1. And start talking to people at home about your group project, okay? All right, you can pack up and make sure you write your homework down and have your vocab on your index cards, and you can go.